Y'all ever heard somebody spend $366 million just to dig a hole? Not a building, not a bridge you can drive across, not a stadium you can put your name on. $366 million spent almost entirely underwater, where not one single soul could ever walk in and see it with their own two eyes. Sounds crazy when you say it like that, don't it? But that's exactly what happened right here in Alabama, at the port of Mobile. For the better part of 5 years, dredges worked around the clock, chewing through the bottom of Mobile Bay, hauling up mud and sand and shell by the millions of cubic yards, moving a channel that ships have used for generations. Now, if you don't know the port of Mobile, let me catch you up quick. It sits right where the Mobile River spills out into Mobile Bay, and from there, straight on into the Gulf. It's Alabama's only deepwater seaport, and it's been the state's front door to the rest of the world for over 300 years. Coal, steel, containers, cars, lumber, you name it, it's probably passed through Mobile at some point. And here's the thing, this project I'm fixing to tell you about, it just wrapped up. Officially certified, ribbon cut, champagne popped in the fall of 2025. The Port of Mobile is now, on paper and in the water, the deepest container port anywhere on the Gulf of America. Think about that for a second. We're not talking about a small, sleepy dock somewhere. We're talking about a port that, by one recent count, drives close to $100 billion of economic activity, touching jobs in every single county in this state, whether folks realize it or not. Coal from Alabama mines, steel headed to Alabama factories, containers full of everything from furniture to car parts. A whole lot of it passes right through Mobile on its way somewhere else. So when somebody spends $366 million changing the water underneath that port, it's not some side project, it's touching the artery. So here's the question I can't shake, and it's the same one that's probably sitting on that thumbnail you clicked to get here. Was it worth it? $366 million. State money, federal money, decades of politicians fighting over it. Was it worth it? By the end of this video, I aim to answer that for you. But before we can talk about whether it was worth it, we've got to understand something a whole lot more basic first. We've got to understand why the bottom of the sea became a problem in the first place. Here's something most folks never think about. The Port of Mobile was never really the problem. The docks were fine, the cranes were fine, the land was fine, the channel was the problem. Let me explain how a modern port actually works, because it ain't as simple as ships pull up and stuff gets loaded. A port is really just the visible tip of a much bigger machine. Underneath every successful port is a channel, a man-made lane carved into the seafloor, deep enough and wide enough for cargo ships to travel from the open ocean all the way up to the docks. And here's where it gets interesting. Over the last 20-30 years, cargo ships have gotten enormous. We're talking about vessels that can carry 12, 14, 16,000 shipping containers at a time. Floating cities, practically. And the bigger a ship gets, the deeper it sits in the water. That's called draft. A fully loaded container ship might need 45, even 50 feet of water under its hull just to float safely, let alone move. Now here's the part that changes everything. Depth means money. Plain and simple. If a channel isn't deep enough, a big ship literally cannot come in fully loaded. The port has to light load it, take some containers off, leave money sitting on the dock, just so the ship don't run aground. Shipping companies do the math on that real quick. And if another port down the coast can take that same ship fully loaded, guess where the business goes? Before this project, Mobile's channel sat at 45 feet deep and 400 feet wide. Solid numbers for the ships of 20 years ago. But the world's fleet had grown up, and Mobile's channel hadn't grown with it. Think of it like a driveway built for a pickup truck. Works fine, until 18-wheelers start showing up, and now you're stuck letting them idle out on the road, unable to pull all the way in. And it's not just depth either. Width matters just as much. A channel that's only wide enough for one ship at a time means every big vessel has to take turns, wait in its slot, burn in hours that cost real money. Multiply that across hundreds of ship calls a year, and you start to see how a narrow, shallow channel doesn't just slow down one ship. It slows down an entire regional economy that's leaning on that port to move on schedule. So by the time engineers and port officials sat down to really study this problem, they weren't just looking at Mobile in isolation. They were watching what was happening in ports up and down the Gulf and the East Coast, Charleston, Savannah, Houston. all of them racing to deepen their own channels for the exact same reason. If Mobile stood still while everybody else moved forward, the port risked becoming a stop that big ships simply skipped. So if the channel was the real bottleneck all along, how in the world does a state like Alabama decide to go fix something most folks will never even see? Here's where I got my first surprise while digging into this story. The plan, on paper, sounded almost too small to matter. Deepen the channel by 5 feet. That's it. 45 feet to 50 feet. 5 feet don't sound like much, does it? That's about the height of a middle schooler. You'd think for $366 million they'd be promising you the Grand Canyon. But here's where the perspective flips completely. This was never just a hole. It was an entire corridor, stretching from out in the Gulf of Mexico, across the Bar Channel, up through Mobile Bay, and into the harbor itself. Miles and miles of seafloor, all needing to be lowered by that same 5 feet. And then, once you account for wave action and future maintenance. And it wasn't only about going deeper. The project widened the Bay Channel from 400 feet to a full 500 feet, stretching that extra width for about 3 nautical miles, creating, for the first time, a real passing lane, so 2 big ships could safely move past each other instead of playing chicken in a single-file channel. Engineers even eased out 2 sharp double bends where the Bar Channel meets the bay, smoothing the path so massive vessels wouldn't have to fight the turn. And down near the port's lower harbor, they pushed the turning basin out another 250 feet, giving the biggest ships enough room to actually spin around and head back out to sea. So when you add it all up, the length, the width, the bends, the turning basin, you start to understand why this thing cost what it cost. It wasn't a ditch. It was closer to rebuilding a highway system, except the highway was invisible, sitting under 50 feet of Alabama saltwater. Which led me to a whole new question. If this was that massive, how in the world did they pull it off without ever shutting the port down? Mobile couldn't just close up shop for 5 years while they worked. Ships still had to come and go, coal still had to move, steel still had to move. So how do you rebuild the front door of a working port while people are still walking through it? Alright, this is the part I've been waiting to tell you about. If the rest of this story is the setup, this right here is the payoff. Digging up the bottom of an active shipping channel isn't done with shovels, obviously. It's done with dredges, and there's a couple different kinds that got put to work here. The first is a hopper dredge. Think of it like a giant floating vacuum cleaner. It drags a massive suction pipe along the seafloor, sucks up a slurry of mud, sand, and water, and stores it right there in its own hull, like a barge that feeds itself. Once it's full, it either sails off to dump the material somewhere approved, or it pumps it out through a pipeline. The second is a cutterhead dredge, which works more like a rototiller with a spinning cutterhead that chews through tougher material on the bottom, then pumps that slurry straight through floating pipelines, sometimes stretching for miles, to wherever the material needs to go. And that's really the unsung hero of this whole project. The pipelines. Picture pipe as wide as a car, floating on pontoons, snaking for miles across open water, moving millions of gallons of mud water mixture from the dredge site to a placement site, all guided and tracked with GPS, so crews knew, foot by foot, exactly how deep they'd cut and exactly where that material was going. And we're not talking about a small job here. Contractors like Great Lakes Dredge and Dock and the Dutra Group worked this project in phases. One early contract alone called for dredging 12 miles of channel, using both hopper and mechanical dredges over roughly 18 months. Phase after that pulled up material by the millions of cubic yards. So where did all that mud go? This is the part that genuinely surprised me. A big chunk of it wasn't just dumped and forgotten. Engineers used it beneficially. Some was placed into old relic shell mined areas of the bay, historic zones that had been dug up decades ago for shell mining and left as unnaturally deep pits on the bay floor, filling those back in to help restore healthier bay bottom conditions. And more recently, dredged material has been used for shoreline restoration down on Dauphin Island, rebuilding beach and marsh that Alabama's coast badly needs. Now, the timeline. This whole thing kicked off with federal authorization back in 2018, got its funding secured through the Rebuild Alabama Act in 2019, and dredging construction officially got underway in 2020, with the Corps of Engineers and the Alabama Port Authority signing the project partnership agreement that summer. From there, it moved phase by phase, 7 phases in total, deepening and widening the Bar Channel, the Bay Channel, and the River Channel, one stretch at a time, for roughly 5 straight years. And through every bit of that, the port never closed. Coal ships kept loading at McDuffie Terminal. Container ships kept calling on APM terminals. Steel kept moving through Pinto Island. Dredges worked alongside working ships, coordinated constantly with turbidity monitoring and environmental checks to make sure Mobile Bay's water quality stayed within limits the whole time. That right there, keeping a major American port fully open, fully working, while quietly rebuilding its entire foundation underneath. That's the kind of engineering that never makes headlines. But honestly, it oughta. It wasn't without its headaches either. This is a working shipping lane, remember? One of the busiest in the southeast. So every dredge, every pipeline, every crew had to work around vessel traffic instead of stopping it. Turbidity got measured daily, right there in the water, and if it crept above the limits set out in the state's environmental permits, crews had to slow down or adjust on the spot. Wildlife agencies stayed involved the whole way through too, keeping an eye on fish habitat and protected species while millions of cubic yards of material moved through the bay. None of that shows up in a highlight reel, but it's the reason this project could move forward at all without grinding the port or the bay's ecosystem to a halt. After years of that grinding, patient work, there finally came a moment where all of it either paid off or it didn't. Every big plan eventually has to meet reality. And for the Mobile Harbor Project, that moment came in early October 2025. The Army Corps of Engineers certified the channel to its full 50-foot depth. And it didn't take long, hours, not days, for the theory to become fact. A bulk carrier called the Sakizawa Power, already docked at the port's McDuffie Coal Terminal, became the very first vessel to use the newly deepened channel. It loaded up extra tonnage of coal and sailed out with a draft of roughly 48.4 feet, a load that channel simply could not have carried safely just days before. By 12:15 that afternoon, it had officially cleared the new channel and was headed out toward the Gulf. Just days after that, on October 13, 2025, the Alabama Port Authority held a ribbon-cutting ceremony over at APM Terminals Mobile with Governor Kay Ivey, Alabama's congressional delegation, and hundreds of port customers and stakeholders on hand. One name kept coming up all through that ceremony. Former U.S. Senator Richard Shelby, credited by nearly everybody there as the man who first pushed for this project, after a trip to the port of Singapore roughly 2 decades earlier, convinced him that a shallow channel would eventually make any port irrelevant. So what actually changed once the water got deeper? For starters, more cargo, immediately. APM Terminals Mobile, the port's container operator, had been routinely handling ships in the 9,000 to 10,000 TEU range. That's shipping containers, for those keeping score. With the new depth, the port can now welcome vessels carrying 12,000 to 16,000 TEUs, and possibly larger ones still, all without the light loading headaches from before. And the port didn't wait around to capitalize on it. APM Terminals had already sunk more than $500 million into upgrading its mobile facility ahead of the deeper channel, in preparation for these bigger ships. A 4th phase of terminal expansion is set to wrap up in 2027, and once it does, officials expect the number of containers moving through the port to double, from around 500,000 TEUs a year to a full million. And looking a decade out, with future planned expansion, that annual number could climb past 2.5 million TEUs. On top of that, plans are already moving for a brand new berth, a 1,300-foot dock, part of a $131 million construction project set to begin in 2026 and finish about 2 years later. Once it's built, APM Terminals Mobile's total berth capacity will reach 1.4 million TEUs a year, supported by 7 ship-to-shore cranes working the docks. No opinions needed here, just what happened. The channel got deeper, the ships got bigger, the cargo got heavier. That's the plan working, right there in black and white. But the deeper I dug into this story, the more I started to notice something. This project never was just about ships. Here's what I mean by that. Around the same stretch of years that the Mobile Harbor Channel was being deepened, a wave of other major investments started landing across the Mobile region. And while I can't tell you the dredging caused every single one of these, I can tell you they were all building at the exact same time, in the exact same corner of Alabama, all leaning on the same idea. That Mobile was becoming a serious place to move goods, build ships, and put down roots. Start with the port itself. APM Terminals and the Alabama Port Authority agreed to a 20-year extension of the terminal's operating concession, now running clean through 2058, with lease payments increasing to help fund even more of the Port Authority's investment. Beyond the new berth I already mentioned, there's more than $200 million going into a 33-acre expansion of the container storage yard, an upgrade to rail capacity, and construction of a brand new rail flyover bridge that'll let trains roll right onto the docks for direct on-terminal loading. Then there's Austal USA, the shipbuilder that's been building Navy and Coast Guard vessels right there in Mobile for years. Austal broke ground on a $288 million expansion of its final assembly facility. A new building over 192,000 square feet, designed to produce large steel ship modules, expected to create over 1,000 jobs across the next 4 years. That expansion is tied to Navy contracts that could eventually be worth up to $3.2 billion, and it'll push Austal's total mobile footprint past 1.5 million square feet of manufacturing space. And just up the road in Baldwin County, at the South Alabama mega site in Bay Minette, about 30 miles from the port, Novelis has been building a massive aluminum recycling and rolling plant. What started as a $2.5 billion investment has grown into a project now valued above $4 billion, is expected to bring on up to 1,000 jobs once it's fully commissioned. And then there's the big one that everybody in South Alabama has been waiting on for 30 years, the Mobile River Bridge and Bayway. As of this year, 2026, Alabama finally has a real path forward. A phased, roughly $3.2 billion first stage that'll build a new 6-lane cable-stayed bridge over the Mobile River and widen the existing bayway to 6 lanes across the bay, with construction targeted to begin before the end of the year and the new bridge expected to open around 2031. State transportation officials have said plainly that easing that choke point will also help freight move more efficiently in and out of the Port of Mobile itself. I'm not here to tell you one of these caused the others. That'd be a stretch, and frankly, it'd be dishonest. What I can tell you is this: a shipbuilder expanding, an aluminum plant rising, a port deepening, and a bridge finally breaking ground. All of it happening in the same few years, in the same stretch of Alabama coastline. That's not conspiracy. That's just what growth looks like when a region starts pulling in the same direction. And it shows up in the bigger numbers, too. A statewide economic study put the Port of Mobile's total impact at $98.3 billion, touching jobs and business activity in every single county across Alabama. Not just Mobile County, every county. That's freight movers in Huntsville, warehouse workers in Birmingham, truckers running I-65 through Montgomery, all connected back to what happens on the water down here. A deeper channel doesn't just help the ships pull in. It helps justify every dollar somebody like Austal or Novelis or the state of Alabama itself decides to bet on this region next. And that's when the question from the very beginning of this video started to mean something different to me. Chapter 6. So, was it worth it? Alright, let's answer it. Not with a simple yes. That'd be lazy, and you deserve better than that. Here's what Alabama actually got for its $366 million. It got capacity, a channel that can now handle the biggest ships calling on the Gulf instead of turning them away or forcing them to leave cargo behind. It got competitiveness. The Port of Mobile can now go toe-to-toe with any other Gulf port for the business of the world's largest shipping lines because for the first time, depth isn't the reason a carrier picks somewhere else. It got room to grow. With terminal expansions already underway, capacity projected to double by 2027, and a longer-term path toward 2.5 million containers a year. It got preparation for the ships that are coming, not just the ships that are here now. Because global shipping isn't getting smaller, it's getting bigger, and Mobile just bought itself a few more decades of relevance. And it got a port built for the next 50 years, not the last 50. Now, I owe you the honest part too, because I told you at the top. Facts, not spin. It is still early. The channel was only certified in October of 2025. Some of the biggest promises, that doubled container volume, that new berth, that 2.5 million TEU future, those are still playing out in real time, over the next several years, not the next several months. And there's a cost that goes beyond dollars too. Keeping a 50-foot channel open isn't a one-time job. The Corps of Engineers is now looking at roughly 2 decades of ongoing maintenance dredging to keep that depth from silting back in. And folks like Mobile Baykeeper have raised real, fair questions about the long-term impact on Mobile Bay's health, even as the Corps points to beneficial use programs like the Dauphin Island restoration work as part of the answer. So, was it worth it? Based on what we can measure right now, yes, by every number the port has put on the table. But the full answer to that question is still being written. One ship, one container, 1 year at a time. Some of that answer won't be clear for another decade, when we can look back and see whether that projected too. 5 million TEUs a year actually showed up, whether the shoreline restoration at Dauphin Island held up over time, and whether all this new industrial investment up and down the mobile corridor kept compounding the way it's starting to now. Here's what I keep coming back to. The biggest engineering projects almost never get the attention they deserve. They don't get parades. They don't get their names carved into stone downtown. Most folks in Alabama will never once think about the Mobile Harbor Channel, never see it, never even know it's there. It's hidden underwater. It's hidden under the numbers on a spreadsheet nobody reads. It's hidden in a 5-foot difference that sounds small until you understand everything riding on it. But it's exactly these kinds of projects, the invisible ones, the unglamorous ones, that end up deciding which cities grow and which ones get left behind. Nobody remembers the ribbon cutting for a channel, but everybody feels it 20 years later when the jobs are there, or when they're not. So here's my last question for you, and I mean it honestly. If that decision had been sitting on your desk, if you had to sign off on spending $366 million of Alabama's money to dig deeper into the bottom of the sea, with no guarantee, just a bet on the future, would you have done it?